Hello and welcome to the Recovered Republican podcast. My name is Brianna, and this week on the Recovered Republican, we're revisiting COVID-19, but not the science, not the headlines, but the actual lived experience. We're talking about what the pandemic did to our lives, our relationships, and our sense of who we are and who we were. So these stories are all the stories that changed us and the ones that we're finally ready to tell. Joining me today is Tabitha Ziegler. She is the host of Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America, and Derek Holder of Hold 'em Accountable. Together, we will reflect on the moments that shaped us and the losses that transformed us and the truths we can't ignore anymore. So please help me welcome them to the stage. Hello, Tabitha and Derek. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, tell me, how are your days going? Are they going okay this Friday?
Besides just getting done changing my little one's backside, it's going pretty good.
Great.
Well, I've already done a recording, so, Fridays are always just recording days for me, so let's do it.
I love it. So today we are going to talk about our COVID stories and, how they impacted us over time. So if you were going to give your story a tagline, what would it be? Just so people have a taste of what they're going to hear in your story. So for me, I would say newlywed loses her husband to COVID-19 at 37 years old. Tabitha, what would your tagline be?
Probably a baby making COVID adventure.
All right. Derek, how about you?
The joys of frequent flyer miles during a pandemic.
Ooh, I'm excited to hear about these. So let's start with Tabitha. What happened during COVID for you?
So I was getting inseminated and I was a little bit older. They call it geriatric pregnancy, right? So initially, when I got pregnant, I didn't know COVID was going to happen. So my first child was born December 3rd, 2019. And I was a flight attendant at the time. So, I entered into my maternity leave. When you're a flight attendant, some companies allow you to extend your maternity leave up to a year. So I wasn't sure if I was going to take that option. I took that option, and then I was a couple months in and I was like, nah, I don't know. I don't know that I want to stay at home a year. I love my son, but I'm just not sure. So I put my paperwork back in to return to flying, and boom, that's when COVID happened. It was like March. They shut everything down. Then I was in this weird limbo that whole time because technically I wasn't like working, but technically I could go back to work, and I was just in that weird period. So here I am with this baby and not really much income and navigating, the struggles of COVID, the medical system, not having a lot of money. And then meanwhile, I was in this back and forth relationship where I was in the States and overseas and carting my child back and forth. I mean, it was a weird time.
Yeah. How did you manage that? Because I know you have 3 children now, but they are all on the spectrum. I would assume that would be extremely difficult to travel with a young child on the spectrum that you probably didn't know at the time was on the spectrum.
Right. So initially I didn't know. And, because I was older, right, I was like, right, well, I've already had one. I don't know how much longer it's going to take me to have another one. And when you get inseminated, sometimes you think it's going to take longer. So I was like, right, technically I've done it. It's been hard, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to have it again. So I went ahead and got inseminated again, thinking that it probably wouldn't take, and it did. So then I end up having 3 babies during COVID and a set of twins.
Wow. That is a lot. What was it like did you give birth in a hospital?
Yeah. So the first time with my first child, I had him in the States. And the second time, actually, because I was one of those people that just decided, right, If the world is burning around me and I'm not really sure what's going to happen, I'm going to go ahead and live my best life and travel anyway, because I had the mask, I have the time. My partner at the time was from another country. So we decided to go and meet in another country, which then with closures, because, back then, every country was handling things differently. So I was in South Africa, and the president of South Africa would just come on the TV one day and be like, right, the borders are closed. Today they're open. Tomorrow they're closed. Oh, surprise, they're closed again. So I ended up getting stranded in South Africa, which meant that I had the twins in South Africa via C-section in a government hospital in South Africa. So yeah, like I'm just checking all the boxes.
That sounds incredibly scary. What was that like for you?
I was not a fan. It was challenging. Put it this way, I would not recommend it.
Not recommend. Okay. Well, let's hear a little bit from Derek. Derek, you got a bunch of frequent flyer miles over COVID. Tell me about that. How did that happen?
Well, at the time, I was working for a company that did medical transportation. So we would, transplant organs and stuff like that. And, I was driving across the country doing these deliveries. And all of a sudden, I get a call from my supervisor, and they're like, hey, we have to start running the Pacers and the Colts to New York City and Washington, D.C., to the testing facilities. Would you like to do it? So I flew back and forth from Indianapolis to one of the 3 airports in New York City, and it was never the same one back to back. And also DC area, to just deliver COVID test. So airports at that time were very interesting. You had to have the mask on all the flipping time throughout the flight. It was super annoying, but we were all trying to stay safe. And there were a lot of people that really complained about having to wear masks. Heard a lot of, but I'm an American, I don't have COVID, I don't have the Chinese disease. And it was like, everybody can get this. It's not for your protection as much as for other people's protection. Because at the time, we kind of knew it, but the science was all over the place. You'd hear, at the time, the president, flat out almost said, inject bleach into your blood to get rid of it.
He basically did, and people actually started drinking bleach.
Yeah.
There was an increase in poisonings after that press conference where he said, well, maybe ingesting bleach is a good idea to kill COVID, or the UV lights or whatever. It was the same conference. And the day after, there was an increase in poisonings, including the weeks after, because of that press conference.
Mm-hmm.
So did you fly the same airline? I know I flew one time during the pandemic, and it was on Southwest because they had mandatory mask mandates when others did not later on in the pandemic. Did you fly a specific line, or was it just all over the place?
I am not paid by them, but Delta Airlines. I fell in love with Delta during that time. They upgraded me almost every flight to first class. And my box of, let's just call it what it is, saliva, sat right next to me. So, yeah, I loved Delta.
Yeah.
I probably will always fly them from now on.
So it kind of sounds like, you got to experience some cool things during COVID, though.
Yeah, met a couple of the Colts players. Heck, I would drive to Cincinnati to pick up the Bengals stuff. Me and Christy, who you've had on the show, we would tag team it at the time where we would trade off driving at times because I was on the road 7 days a week. If I wasn't flying, I was driving somewhere. So a lot of mileage on my car, a lot of mileage in the air. I mean, I did see the Ravens, the Colts, the Pacers, the Bengals, the Bills, like I said, the Pacers, the Lakers.
You got to see a lot of games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Was there protocols at the games? I don't really recall.
There were. Some of them were very small attendance, if attendance was allowed at all.
I just remember at the Super Bowl they had like cardboard cutouts of people that year. Yeah. But that's cool. It's interesting to hear because my experience was so very negative during COVID. I am a COVID widow. So I had married my husband, Lou, my late husband, Lou, in 2018 in November. And then he got COVID at the very beginning. It was like the end of February. He went in, or at the end of March, excuse me. And he went in, I think, March 30th and then died on April 6th from COVID-19. He was 37 years old. And after that, like, obviously I like shattered. It's just, there's no other way. I loved my husband very much. And it shattered me. It was something that I did not think I was going to recover from in the beginning. And what I experienced during COVID was I started speaking out about my experience because I wanted people to understand that this was real and that it really could kill somebody, and that it doesn't always kill who you think it does, because I have autoimmune disorders and I was concerned. We were both concerned if I got it, that I would get severe COVID. But what ended up happening is he got severe COVID and my symptoms were mild to moderate. And after speaking out, random people that I didn't know started trolling me on social medias. Like, they would come and send me hate messages saying that my husband deserved to die because he had had several surgeries the previous year on his hip, starting with a hip replacement. And he put on some bad weight, and so he was overweight. So clearly he deserves to die because he was overweight. And for me, it really started to open my eyes to the fact of really what people think and really how individualistic people are and how little people care about their fellow man in this country, at least in Indiana, because the amount of vitriol I received from Christians was absolutely awful. People would send me messages that it was a big conspiracy theory. The hospital killed my husband. It was a population control tactic. It was just the craziest people that you've ever seen. Then people would come and attack my weight as well and attack me personally. And I'm still a human. We're all humans. And I just don't understand these keyboard warriors, but the amount of hate and the amount of political, just not violence, but discord that happened during that time. I feel like it fractured a lot of things. It fractured our political system. And I think we're still operating like it didn't. Tabitha, what do you think?
Well, I was a flight attendant during that time, and even though for a period of time I wasn't flying, I did get called back. Like, I had to wait to do recurrent training again because they stopped training. So that's why I couldn't fly again. Like, whenever COVID hit, they weren't really sure what was going on. They tinkered around with it a bit. And, obviously people they slowed down flying, but I had to wait all the way until August to start flying again. But when I did, you know, we had the masks, we had the goggles, we had the gloves for preventative, device. They were spraying the planes. I had friends of mine that had to stop flying because they were allergic to the spray. Um, there were people that I knew as flight attendants that not only got COVID once, got it twice. Some still have long COVID. I know a friend of mine that she had a stroke, and a variation of things medically happened to her to where she can't fly anymore, and now she's permanently disabled. I have flight attendant friends of mine that their parents were taken in early, like some of them were in the tri-state area, and one person in particular, she got a phone call. She was her mother's only child. She ran to the hospital. She wasn't able to get there in time, basically, and they closed the doors as her mother was, like, screaming for her, and she never saw her mother again. So, I have multiple examples of friends of mine that either their parents died or their spouses died or they have long COVID, that are still dealing with the medical complications of that. It is true, it affected everybody differently. As we went along, it seemed like there were certain groups within the community that would get it worse, or the effects would be worse, like the African American community. Personally, of the people that I know that got it bad or the relatives died, I would say there probably were more in, like, from the African American community. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying, like, what I saw or what I heard of. Um, I got COVID. My parents got COVID. I actually, when my son was very small, I think I probably had it then. And I remember one night I couldn't breathe, and it was just me and him. And so I went online, filled out an online will, and left the door unlocked all night just in case something happened to me, so that someone would be able to get in to get my child. And I think things like that just never really leave you. So, I mean, I'm from a really small town. I know people in my town that they weren't sure that it was a thing, and then they didn't wear a mask, and then they got it and died. And, like, these are friends of mine that I went to school with, their parents. Um, it's just interesting, the mindset behind it, and I almost kind of feel like, especially in red areas, you almost had to know someone that died before you took it really seriously, because they were constantly pumping all this, information via whatever news channels you had access to that was confusing people, and it was making it seem like it wasn't a big deal. So therefore, because, they trusted their politicians, the political process, they were like, right, like they wouldn't lie to us. And so then they believed what they said, and people that they loved died.
Yeah. As somebody, I had long COVID, and I I had it we're almost to the 6-year anniversary. I still cannot taste certain herbs anymore. I couldn't taste for like 3 years pretty much. And I had like a fast heart rate and heart issues as well. And it's when having COVID, it feels like you might die, even if it's not severe. The day I took my husband to the hospital last time, because he was so out of breath, he could not do it. Took him to the hospital, and I had to stand outside while they wheeled my husband away for the last time and was not allowed to be with him. We said goodbye over FaceTime. Derek, what did you experience? What are your thoughts?
I personally got COVID 3 times. And I'm also immunocompromised because I have multiple sclerosis. And the first time I got it, the VA had me come up to Rudenbush VA Center, and they had to give me the infusion for those who are immunocompromised. And that was fun because I have a weird thing in my body where my trapezius nerve actually runs on top of my vein on my left arm. And when they went to poke it, instant electric shock in my hand. I could not feel my hand for 6 months after that. So that was a fun discovery about my body. um, After that, I got the infusion 2 more times. I would think the lack of smell and lack of taste were some of the worst symptoms because I enjoy food. I'm a big man. I like to eat. And yeah, lack of taste was horrible. My wife, Christy, on the other hand, her respiratory got so dangerously low, and she was a working nurse at the time at IU Bloomington at the behavioral health floor, and she caught it, I think, 3 or 4 times, and she's immunocompromised because she has fibro, and I mean, it just went through our house like 3 times. Like,
Yeah.
I would get it, Christy would get it, our daughter would get it. And I mean, our son wasn't alive yet, so thank goodness for that. But it just cycled through us, and we did everything that Dr. Fauci said to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much we still have hand sanitizer from that time that we're still finding in drawers somewhere. Sanitize your hands all the time. Wear the mask wherever you go. I mean, stay away from known people with COVID. I don't believe we had any personal connection to anyone who passed with COVID. So I mark us as some of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
I know so many people that have had losses. And
I'm
so,
surprised you don't know anyone because
yeah,
I know 3 people. And my husband, I had a coworker also die from it at the time, shortly after my husband. And then my current husband's grandmother died because of COVID.
yeah, I mean, I'm very much introverted, which is kind of weird that I'm a podcast host, but I get to do this sitting in my own house and talking to people on a screen, so I don't have to physically interact with people. But I'm very introverted. My wife is very introverted as well. So, our circle of friends is very small as it is. And I mean, family wise, I mean, I have my parents, that's it. And my wife has, a huge freaking family. But yeah, no one that we know passed. I mean, we know of people that did. Obviously, Christy working at the hospital. She knows quite a bit of what went on at IU Bloomington. How many? Don't want to sound crash about it, but how many body bags were just unloaded out of the hospital?
Yeah.
And that was Bloomington.
Yeah.
So
I think that, and this is why I wanted to have this, is because there are so many people who are unaware of what people went through during COVID. Like, I'm not talking about like the people who were like, weren't affected by it that much, but like it didn't really impact their lives. They were just like, I'm so bored for 2 weeks and I learned to make sourdough. Oh no, how horrible for you. But like there are nurses that I've talked to that had to put a live patient in a body bag, fill it with ice to try to bring down their fevers, because that was the thing. When my husband passed away, his fever was like 118. COVID, especially the first strain, caused the highest fevers, and it basically cooked your brain. And it's just like that level of trauma is never going to leave them because those patients didn't make it. And there's so many that didn't. They were just trying anything that would stick to a wall. And people want to come at me and say things like, I started a COVID widow group, support group, and I had to make rules eventually because even within that group, people were like, it was on purpose. Contact a lawyer for medical malpractice. Well, I did talk to a lawyer about medical malpractice, and guess what? It was during a pandemic, so it has to be egregious. There was no medical malpractice because we had no idea how to use it, how to defeat this virus that we had never seen before. And I think that people still don't realize that Donald Trump knew that COVID-19 was a problem in China in November of 2019. He could have made the choice to follow the pandemic protocol that was set forth by the Obama administration, but because he is Donald Trump and is, I don't know, it's just like anything that comes from an oppositional side is obviously wrong. But because he ignored that and did not tell us till the new year, I am sure hundreds of thousands of lives could have been spared if we had approached this differently. And, maybe we would be looking at this in a different way. Maybe we could have figured out a vaccine sooner and got out of it sooner, but we'll never know because of the colossal mistakes that Donald Trump made. So this kind of makes me want to transition into the political scene a little bit. And I know we're all in this political scene. Do you think that COVID changed the political landscape? Let's start with you, Tabitha.
Absolutely, because let's talk about international politics just for an example. You have places like New Zealand that was run by a female who decided, right, you know what? We're not exactly sure what this is. Let's just sort of insulate for now. Let's not allow a lot of travel. I think if you look at the examples around the world, where you had leaders that really cared about their people say, right, we don't know what this is. We need to get medical data or whatever is available to us to make the best decision for our people. More people lived. And for me, because I was doing a lot of international travel, I saw that firsthand. Now, I'm not saying that I like everything that happened in South Africa, but at least I understand it more. I'm assuming whatever information he was getting was right, okay, the levels seem too high. I'm just going to shut it down. Now, of course, that botched everybody's travel plans and all this stuff. Put me in, a not so nice situation. Arguments can be made all over the place, but I think we can say unequivocally that the way that we handled the outbreak in the States could have done nothing but spread it, because there was so much stuff going on and so much dialing back. And it's right, okay, in this state, maybe there's more. It's not so bad over here, or we're not sure, or we don't want to wear the mask or whatever. It being a flight attendant too, passengers would fight us over the mask. They would fight us over the mask for their children. I know flight attendants that lost their jobs because of altercations that broke out between them and passengers when all they were trying to do was enforce the mandates of the airlines, because that's what they were told to do, not just for them, for their own safety, but for the safety of everyone on the plane. And then they literally, besides some of them also getting COVID that affected them for the rest of their lives, some of them lost their livelihood over it. And personally, I find that so personally egregious, just individually and as a nation, that the irresponsibility of leaders to know this information and the fallout just in every category from knowing that information and not caring, and how that trickled down in a bad way through every organization, was just catastrophic.
Absolutely. I think it just shows, again, like what I talk about a lot. It's like the Republicans say they want to care, but when they put their money where their mouth is, at the end of the day, they choose themselves, and the rest of us can just figure it out. And if that means we die, I don't think they care. But Derek, what do you think about the changes in political landscape since COVID?
I think it has made our nation even more polarized. Because if you think about it, before 2020, yeah, we were, polarized, but we could talk to each other in most areas. Yes, you had the diehards on both sides that could not talk to each other, but you could usually reach pretty far in to the Republican Party and still, there was a sense of we're all trying to get through this together. We have different ideas of how to do it, but, we're on the same team. After 2020, it built a wall in between the two major parties. And I mean, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse because you have those who sees that 47 did absolutely nothing wrong. He was the end all be all. He was trying to protect us from China and, everything else that he's the savior this country needed or needs still. While the rest of us, which, brains are awesome, are like, what the hell are you talking about? He was going pseudoscience over regular science. Look who the health secretary is.
I was about to say was.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, he's very anti-science. He's very, this is how I feel, and what I feel must be right. And
He bases his decisions off of conspiracy theories, pseudoscience, quack science, which we all know are not good sciences if you know anything about science.
Exactly. And I mean, you have states like Florida, which during COVID was a free for all. I mean, anything could happen in Florida. But then you had other states like New York City, or New York, not New York City, but New York, who got ravaged by COVID. They were having to buy testing supplies off of eBay. It's like,
I didn't know
what
that.
the hell? They had refrigerated trucks behind every hospital in New York City.
That started early on, like during the shutdown.
Yeah, it makes sense because
No, they had ships in the harbor, man. Like,
yeah,
the tri-state was a fucking mess. So was San Francisco. Like, any of the flight attendants will tell you, like, any of the coasts, they were a fucking mess. And they were trying to contain that the best they could. And yet we kept flying because why not? Let's just spread it everywhere.
Well, why should we? I do, in hindsight, at the time, I felt strong emotions about this, obviously, because my husband just died. And I also was unable to exercise, like cardiovascular exercise, for like over a year because of my breathing. It's just like, I could also see if for somebody who didn't lose somebody, why you would say, you know what, if you aren't going to try to protect us, I'm going to live my life as normal because I'm already at risk. Is that kind of what you were thinking?
I mean, for me, it was very much, no, I still have to make money. I mean, in this economy, even the economy of 2020, which, was actually a little bit better than what it is now. I don't know how the hell that's possible, but
Because Donald Trump is that good at ruining our economy.
Exactly. Give him a second try, it gets even worse. I mean, I still had to make money. My wife had to make money. So had to keep working. And if that meant me being put at risk to catch the biggest pandemic since the Spanish flu, then you know what? I was the person to be put on that front line, to be put in that tube in the air that recycled the air and just made COVID go all over the place. It's like I had to do what I had to do. Yes, I wore the mask. Yes, I hand sanitized. I tried to be mindful of other people as well, because I could have been a courier of COVID and not have had COVID a couple times. I mean, we don't really know if we were carrying it and didn't catch that specific strain. So I had to be cognizant of, other people as well. So I wore my the wraparound mask, which was, a piece of cloth with the actual medical face mask, because I double masked type thing. Plus it was more comfortable. But yeah, it was a crazy time.
Well, let's just talk about the fact though, and I don't know if my memory is better than some other people's, right? But let's just talk about for a second the lack of medical supplies. So as they were rolling out the type of mask that you should have, to get it, to access it was already hard. And so people were selling out. Like I remember people flying that people were stealing the hand sanitizer, the gloves, and the masks out of their luggage because people that worked at the airports, especially in other countries like in South Africa, they couldn't get it. So they were stealing it out of people's bags.
That's wild.
Not judging, just saying these are facts. Like because of the movement and because of the fear, people needed the materials. And if they could not get the materials, they would steal them. And then you had, I mean, I'm sure you guys remember like the toilet paper shortage, like this panic and this fear that people got in them was extra. Like I remember because I had a small child, I was like, right, let me go ahead and stock up on some like Tylenol and stuff like that, just in case, because remember they stopped making it or we weren't able to get it. And because I had a very vulnerable child, which everybody's child when they're new are vulnerable, I was like, okay, let me be proactive. I tried to stay at home. I bought, as much of bulk as I could just for the kid. But I kind of wonder if we had, say, maybe taken like a New Zealand approach, if the fallout would have been easier and better and people could have recuperated, especially financially, better in the long term. Because if we'd have maybe sealed the countries for, even if it was 2 weeks, right? Just, all right, I'm going to shut it down for 2 weeks, see what happens. We're going to try and contain this thing. I often wonder to myself, especially as a flight attendant, right? Trying to contain something like that, would it have been better than in little spurts? Because I kind of feel like, look at chicken pox or the flu in any childhood setting, in an elementary school. You are not able to send your child to school because they're extra contagious. So they have a specified amount of time that they're supposed to stay home for the sake of the other children. So I kind of felt like, how much could we have honestly suffered as an entire US population if they had basically run the whole like elementary school project with us as adults and said, right, look, we know it's going to be painful. We know it's going to hit your pocketbook a minute, but like, let's just try this once and see what happens, rather than let's just run the gamut with it. And as it spikes, try and do something. And I think any normal person could have rationalized that. But our problem in the US was the propaganda, like talking about bleach and all this stuff. And I will say this too, being an autism parent and having autism myself, the fallout from all of that was extreme for the autism community, because then they attached that to autism. And they're like, oh, well, you had a kid with autism during that time. Do you think it's because you got the COVID injection? Did you get the COVID injection whenever you were pregnant? I had both examples. I had a child that was born before we even knew what was going on. I have no idea, because I was in a hospital, right? If I had been exposed to it while I was there, because nobody knew, but obviously it was here. And then I had children later when I had the opportunity to get the injection while I was pregnant, because that's what my doctors recommended. And they explained it to me like this. They said, listen, what we are seeing in pregnant women is this: people get the shot and they live, or they don't and they die. So our recommendation would be, if you would like to potentially prevent the death of yourself or your fetus, get the shot. So to me, it was a no-brainer, because I was like, right, save myself and my children or roll the dice. To me, it was easy. But later, the doubt and the worry of random people or my family members being like, right, so do you think that because you got the shot, it caused your child's autism? Like, you already have enough grief anyway, and then they go and say that shit. And you're probably already thinking about it to some degree, because as a parent, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do wrong to do this? And anyway, this
You have
leads in.
genetics. That's it.
Right, but this leads into my advocacy. Like, it, for me, stems all the way back there, right? Because I was that parent of children that were born at that time that then got diagnosed with autism. And I was a pregnant person that took that shot. And I had so much grief and uncertainty, not just then, but it flowed years after, to a point where finally I was like, right, you know what? I can't worry about that. I did everything I possibly could. Like, I was a good mother. I I did everything I was supposed to do. I'm not going to take that shame. So then I started speaking out. And I just think it's so important. Like, this conversation is so important to so many people, because look, we've got 3 really diverse stories, but just to watch how it's flowed through every aspect of our lives into probably all the advocacy that we're doing now. I mean, you have a podcast, I have a podcast. We're advocates in like multiple areas. And it's essentially all because some asshats decided that they were going to roll the dice on all of our lives.
Yeah, that is very true. Derek, did you second guess getting the vaccination? I know as soon as I could get it, because I was considered a medical professional, I got it like really early on in 2021, I think January. But for me, it was a no-brainer. Was it a no-brainer, or did you have to contemplate?
I have 2 different stories on the vaccine. One is Christy's story. Is medical professional. She was pretty much told, you get the vaccine or you don't work for us anymore. So she obviously got the vaccine. Me, on the other hand, I can't get vaccines because of my MS. Because MS, the white blood cells see my normal body as attacking itself. So I can't get a live vaccine because it would super enhance my MS and actually tear apart my brain even worse than what, MS already does. So I cannot get vaccines whatsoever. So I never get flu vaccine, didn't get COVID vaccine. So, I'm out here, excuse my language, but raw dogging it through society with no vaccines. So, yeah, so that's fun. I'm open to every disease possible. Yay. And I just asked Christy when she walked through if we did lose anybody. She lost 2 cousins. So,
Wow.
That's another issue with MS is memory. I legitimately have holes in my brain, so I
That's
don't
okay.
remember everything. So.
I also
Yeah.
wanted to mention real fast before I forget. At the time, it was mandated by the airline that I worked for. I would imagine it was by all of them that, same deal. You either get vaccinated or you don't work here. Like it wasn't initially that, but at some point it was that.
Yeah, which is interesting. Because people had all sorts of things that it's just the propaganda in America. What I really think, and I think all three of us, and honestly the whole pin thing, needs to focus on educating people what propaganda looks like in the United States, because people are unable to identify it, and that's a problem. We were all taught about Yahtzee propaganda in school, but we were never taught how to identify it in our own country, and it's to our detriment because we have all these people believing a man who honestly should be in a nursing home, not the president. So how do we move forward from this, Derek?
One thing to say as a veteran, our country is the greatest country on the face of the earth when it comes to propaganda. I mean, look what we have to do first thing in the morning while we're at school. We pledge allegiance to the flag every morning for 12 years. Tell me that doesn't get to people. It got to me. Hell, I joined the Marine Corps. But it's everything that our country does. And I love my country. I put my life on the line for my country, and I do it again. And hopefully don't have to. But we'll do it again. It's the propaganda machine that keeps going and going and going. We're the greatest nation in the world. We have the greatest economy in the world. We have the smartest people in the world. Everybody else is less than us. Look at how we speak about other countries being third world. Look how we talk about the Scandinavian countries. Oh, they're socialists because they have universal health care, universal college, because our country is so individualistic that none of that will ever work in the US because we are the shining light on the hill. Because we are the country everybody wants to come to. And that's been ingrained in us since we were little children. And I thought my parents went through propaganda being from the Soviet Union, but they flat out said that their propaganda wasn't as bad as what we go through daily as children. So to break the propaganda machine that is America, I'm sorry, but I don't see it ever happening. We can teach what propaganda is. We could teach how to see what's really going on in the world and not have a United States centric view on the world. And that's how I believe we get the message out there, is we are not the only ones in the world. What we do affects every other country on the face of this earth because we are the last superpower. We have bases in 180 countries. We have troops deployed across the world at all times.
Why? Why?
National security.
Oh, I'm confused. Wasn't Donald Trump saying he was the president of peace?
And then goes into another country and kidnaps their leader and says we need Greenland, and that could possibly end NATO and cause World War III. Talking about taking Cuba. It's like, yes, peace through war. Let's remember that war is a wing of diplomacy. It's not what we need right now. There is no reason to invade a fellow American nation. Because let's put it in there. We are not America. We are an American nation. We are the United States, but we are not America. There are very basic ways that we think that need to be addressed. Is we're the only country that says we are American. Then what the hell are the Colombians? Are they not American in the fact that they're on a continent named South America? So you don't see Germans saying we're European. They're German. So we're United Statians? I don't know.
Look, I have to interject real fast, Derek. I heard something today that actually made really solid sense. And they said, we are not an American nation because that would mean that we are native to this land when we are actually a multitude of cultures from all over the world that pushed out the natives. So I think language is really important. Like, I come from a family, like, shoot, I can trace my ancestry back to the Revolutionary War. I know Brianna's got a story. You've got a story. All of us have a strong sense of patriotism. I think it starts with telling the truth. And I wanted to mention this quote that I've loved since I was a kid, but I think is really important to say right now to people. It's by Mark Twain. Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. And that is what's happened to the U.S. Part of the propaganda machine is that we are great, and therefore we have no need to travel outward, when traveling outward has been the thing that the educated people have always done. The elite in this country, they're playing a joke on the rest of these people, convincing them that they don't need travel and that they must be slaves to this nation. Meanwhile, they'll take all their money and they'll do the fashionista tour all around the world, and they're fine with that. That's fine for them and their kids, but it's not fine for these people.
Yeah, I think that travel is extremely important to seeing that some of this propaganda isn't real, but then it becomes this issue of the people who are believing the propaganda are the ones that generally can't afford to travel. So to me, that brings up another barrier because, again, of the wealth inequality gap here in America. So, but go ahead, Tabitha.
But you have people in your communities that are from other places, like the immigrants that people hate so much right now. You literally, in some of these places, could step into Mexico, Ecuador, Nicaragua, pick one. And the reason they're here is because we went into their nations, messed things up for them, and now they're here. So technically, most Americans have access to a lot of different cultures in their backyard. But part of that mindset of American exceptionalism, and the wider you are, the more elite you are, and the better you are, causes a rift, because then they're like, oh, well, those brown people don't know anything. When those brown people technically are more educated than you, most likely, because they already speak two languages or they're trying to.
Yeah. I mean, most people in other countries speak at least 2 languages. Most people in America only speak English. And I assume it's going to get worse, especially since Indiana changed their graduation requirements. And it's just, it feels like, at least in Indiana, I can't speak for other states, it feels like we are just trying to make people dumb here because they know if they're dumb, they are going to listen to them and believe what they say and believe the propaganda. How do we fight this? I don't know. What do you think, Derek?
Education is power. The more educated a populace is, the more likely is they won't believe the bullcrap. Trump himself has said, I love the uneducated because they vote for me. He's said the quiet part out loud. He doesn't want educated people. He wants cronies. He wants yes men. He just doesn't want anybody to be educated because if they are, they could call him out on his bullcrap. So the more that we are educated, the better our democracy will be.
So maybe it's time that we just focus a lot of efforts on making sure our public schools are fully funded in Indiana, which I know spoke with Natasha Baker earlier this week, and she is about that with the voucher programs, getting rid of them because she believes that if we just fund our public schools, we won't need them. So, which I can't argue with, I guess. But as we are coming up to the hour, I don't want to take more of your time than we have to, but I want to thank you for coming on. And Tabitha, tell people where they can find more about you and more about your podcast.
Well, you can just Google me, basically, Tabitha Ziegler or Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, and also part of the PIN network, so you can find our stuff there.
And Derek, how about Hold Them Accountable? Where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube. You can find me at Facebook, Instagram, all Hold Them Accountable. I release 2 episodes a week, interview on Wednesday and a deep dive on Friday. And that's it.
Also on the PIN network, though, too.
Also on the PIN network.
Yes. And of course, you can find The Recovered Republican on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Substack, and now the PIN network. Thank you both again for taking the time to discuss this topic with me. I look forward to talking to you more about it in the future because I think these conversations are so important for people to hear. So if you think of a topic you want to do, I am always open to. So I look forward to future conversations with the both of you, and I hope you both have a great weekend.
You as well. Thank you.
You too.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.